Maybe that's good though, right?
Good.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us at Local Government Academy. And today's webinar we have to offer is a collaboration with Local Government Academy and the Center for Energy Policy and Management at Washington and Jefferson College. It's Act 13, Understanding the Marcellus Shale Drilling Law. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping comments. We're using YouTube Live to broadcast our webinar this afternoon. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, you may not be able to use the chat feature, but if you don't mind, until we resolve that particular issue, if you could just email any questions during the webinar to my email, which is gbutler@localgovernmentacademy.org. Again, any questions at any time during the webinar, gbutler@localgovernmentacademy.org, and I will make sure that Corey gets the questions and he'll answer the questions for you. I want to just talk about LGA real quick and run through a couple of future classes. If you've been on our webinars before, this is usually what I do, but I'll make it as quick as possible. I just want you guys to know that we're offering these, and if you could attend and spread the word, that would be wonderful. So LGA is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-advocating organization that we primarily educate municipal officials, elected and appointed officials, and also municipal staff on anything local government. We also offer internships. We currently have 25 interns out there throughout multiple counties. I hope you're all doing well. If any of you are on the webinar, hi to you, and thanks for joining. We also offer technical assistance if needed for EIP communities and Act 47 communities, and that could be assistance with any of your processes within your staff or municipal offices. And then when available, we have grants. Currently, there are none available, but please keep posted to our website, and we'll let you know whenever some funding becomes available. So very quickly, we have a couple classes lined up. We have a regulation of wireless facilities by local governments, and that's with the Cohen Law Group. And this course is generally talking about the smaller towers that are currently allowed to be placed in the community rights of way. And there's very little legislation behind controlling that, and there is some current discussion at the state level on what needs to be done in order to give municipalities control over the placement of them. So this is a very timely, in my opinion, timely webinar that you should attend because these smaller towers are becoming more common, and there's more and more of them being placed at local municipalities. So this is a free webinar on July 10th. We also have coordinating road construction and repair with utilities, and this is a new web-based utility and municipal software that allows municipalities to coordinate their construction efforts, their road repair efforts with utility work. And it's web-based, and it was developed by Pennsylvania 811, otherwise known as Pennsylvania One Call. And the whole process was vetted through the Connect organization. So they're both going to be on the webinar talking about how the application came about and how useful it could be. And they're also going to provide a live demo of how it's used. And I've seen it in its beta form, and it's incredibly useful and simple. So please join us for that. Later on in July, towards the end of the month, we have a Things I Wish I Had Known About Labor Law when I started, and this is just a great overview of HR-related policies and decisions that have affected municipalities positively and negatively. As you know, if you have municipal experience, HR-related topics are usually the most sensitive, sometimes the most expensive. So I think this is a great overview of things you should look out for within your staff. To make sure you don't run into any obstacles. That's also a free webinar in July. And lastly, we have another webinar with the Cohen Law Group. This one's about negotiating cable franchises with confidence. And the idea behind this class is knowing what cable providers are obligated to offer municipalities for the right to use to run their service within your municipal boundaries. It's actually more complicated than you think, and the Common Law Group is very good at this is one of their specialties, if not their specialty. And they're very, very good at explaining what to look for so that when you sit at the table to renegotiate your cable contract, you'll know exactly what's fair game and exactly how to negotiate it. So again, a free webinar, no charge for any of these. They last about an hour. This one's in September. And then I said lastly before, but really this time lastly, we just set up a road maintenance. I made up this title, to be honest. It might change once we start marketing it. It's not even out there yet to be registered, but just wanted to throw it out there as save the date. It's a basic road maintenance, how to strategically plan for long-term budgeting. And this is very timely. We timed it around the budget season so that you can start thinking about how to look at your roads, develop maybe a 3 to 5 year plan and a budget accordingly over the next couple of years in order to keep those roads maintained and repaired within reason financially. And with that said, I did that as quick as I could. Let's get to the real subject. I would like to present Corey Young. He is the director for the Center for Energy Policy and Management. I'm not going to read his bio. I'm just going to let him tell us a little bit about himself. So there we go. Well, here comes Corey. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and your being here today. Like Greg said, I am Corey Young, the Director of the Center for Energy Policy and Management at W&J. And the center works in a number of energy areas, but a lot of our work does have to do with natural gas and shale gas development here in the Commonwealth, but also a little bit about West Virginia and Ohio too. We work with the LGA regularly on these projects and programs, and I'll tell you some more about some upcoming programs, or an upcoming program that we have in September. But today we're going to talk about natural gas and the Act 13 impact fee, which is a topic that continues to be very popular and very relevant for a lot of municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. So without further ado, we'll get started. So first we'll talk about the sources of the revenue from shale gas development. Move into Act 13, talk about the distributions, allocations, and expenditures, go into an example or a few examples of impact fee uses, and then some additional tips or recommendations as they pertain to the Act 13 impact fee. So when we think about natural gas development or shale gas development in the Commonwealth, we usually talk about the royalties that public or private individuals receive, and then of course Act 13. But there are additional impacts in terms of revenue from the industry that don't get as much bandwidth. And so there are royalties from shale gas development on publicly held land. So that includes parks or other holdings by municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. And if there is a natural gas well on that property, then obviously the municipality would be receiving the revenue from that. And then there's also the sales tax and the property tax and additional fees that are associated with development too, such as permitting fees and other types of fees collected from municipalities. So sales tax being the revenue generated from natural gas companies coming in and just buying or using regular services in the municipality. Property tax, if that happens to go up by virtue of people moving into the community, obviously that is revenue from the industry as well. And then of course we have the Act 13 impact fee, which is probably the lion's share of questions that we receive and what most people want to talk about in terms of revenue from shale gas development. So Act 13 and the impact fee, it was a part of legislation that was passed in 2012. So Act 13 was passed in 2012, and it established the unconventional natural gas impact fee with the idea that municipalities that are directly impacted by the development, so whether that be the roads that are impacted or other issues that come up, they should be the people or the municipalities that are receiving most of the revenue from that activity. The fee, which was unique and a little bit strange at the time, is administered by the Pennsylvania Public Utilities Commission, or the PUC, rather than the DEP. And so it makes it a little bit difficult. Most people think that you go to the DEP website to find most of the revenue or Act 13 information, when in fact you go to the PUC website. If you're looking for well production data or information about particular wells, you do go to the DEP. It's the money side that you go to the PUC. The actual calculation of the impact fee is a little complex and often confuses people. There are a lot of variables that are used in the calculation of that impact fee. So how we determine which municipality gets what amount. So just a few of those variables that go into determining the amount that a municipality receives is the average annual price of natural gas. So as prices go up and down, that could potentially impact the impact fee or the amount received, as well as changes in the consumer price index. So the consumer price index that's used at a national scale also affects the amount of money that municipalities receive. Another thing to pay attention to is also the age of the well. So as a natural or unconventional natural gas well gets older, the fee actually goes down. So a lot of the wells that were initially established in 2012, 2011, even 2013, they're bringing in much less revenue in many cases, even though they might be producing a high amount of shale gas. So it's important to realize that the age of the well is very important in determining how much revenue will be received. So if wells are particularly old in your municipality, that's certainly going to impact or affect how much of the impact fee you receive in the future. It's also important to realize that when the money is collected by the PUC, automatically $25.5 million comes off the top, and that goes to various state agencies. I believe including the Boat Commission, Wildlife, and a few other agencies as well. After the initial distribution, 60% of those funds are given to the counties and municipalities with wells, or the counties and municipalities adjacent to areas with wells. And then the other 40% is deposited into the Marcellus Legacy Fund, which is available for counties throughout the Commonwealth. So now we're going to talk about the disbursement. So how much money was actually collected from the unconventional natural gas impact fee established under Act 13. We can go all the way back to the earliest collections, but for the purpose of today, I just went back 4 years. So we went to 2014. Obviously, 2018 is not available yet, so we're working on 2017's data. 2017 was a relatively good year. $210 million was collected. That's coming off of a relatively low year in 2016 and 2015 with $173 million and $188 million. And then a little bit lower than 2014, which was a particularly good year at $224 million. And so that's all of the revenue collected in totality. So most people want to know or benchmark how they're doing relative to other counties and other municipalities throughout the Commonwealth. So if you look on the one side, we have the top receiving counties in 2017. We have Washington County at the top, followed by Susquehanna and Bradford, and then Greene and Lycoming. So a lot of the initial development occurred toward the eastern and northeastern part of the state with Bradford County. Recently, that has leveled off a little bit, and we see a lot more interest in the western part of Pennsylvania, in Washington County and Greene counties. And we believe that can be attributed to the interest in natural gas liquids. So all of the natural gas liquids that would go into producing other various products, including the ethane that would be used in the ethane cracker plant that's currently under construction in Beaver County. So you can see Washington County had a little bit more than 7 million, then it drops down to about 6 million, 5 million, very close, following behind is Greene with about 5 million, and then it drops down to about 3.7 million with Lycoming County. Now, again, what the county receives from the impact fee is different from what the municipalities receive. So municipalities within those counties also receive their own checks. So the top receiving municipalities, and I'm sorry, that should say 2017, included Center Township at about 1.2 million, Morris Township at about 1 million, then Amwell, Franklin, and Auburn townships. You can see all of those are at 1 million or slightly below. Now, one of the things that we've done at the Shale Gas Knowledge Hub, which is the initiative of the Center for Energy Policy and Management at W&J, is to look at the spread or the range of those impact fee payments. So this is not readily available. This is information that we've compiled from the PUC data. So just really quickly, Washington County, with it being the top producing county, we tabulated the minimum payment received by any municipality, the median or 50% mark of payments received by any municipality, then the third quartile or 75%, and the maximum. So what we take away from this is that the minimum payment received by any municipality in Washington County was $358. 50% of all the municipalities in Washington County received $114,000 or less. 75% of municipalities in Washington County received about $338,000 or less. And the total maximum payment in all of Washington County was $865,184. So we knew that because Washington was the top producing county, it would give some type of idea of, well, if they're doing the best county-wide, what do those payments to the municipalities actually look like? So then we went and tabulated that same information for all of the municipalities in Pennsylvania. So you can see the minimum payment was $1.49. So one municipality actually received only $1.49 as an impact fee payment through Act 13. 50% of all the municipalities with impact fee payments in Pennsylvania received about $6,400 or less. 75% received about $38,000 or less. And the total maximum payment was $1.2 million. So I think it's important to keep in mind this spread or range of the impact fee payments, because oftentimes in the newspapers we read about those really large payments and all of the activity going along with those really large payments, because in many ways it's considered a windfall for a municipality. So if anybody's jealous of those big windfall payments, you can rest assured that that's actually the outlier in many cases, rather than the typical or the norm for the Act 13 impact fee payments. So how can you actually use the impact fee dollars that you receive? I won't read through the whole list with you, but basically most of the everyday regular municipal activities that you would do can be paid for with impact fee dollars, or the impact fee dollars can be invested to help you conduct those activities. So construction, reconstruction, maintenance of roadways, bridges, and public infrastructure, water, stormwater, and sewer systems, emergency preparedness, including updates to your GIS, environmental programs. And I like to point this one out because a lot of people are surprised by this, that you can invest your impact fee dollars for trails, parks and recreation, baseball fields, soccer fields, all of that can be funded using your impact fee dollars. Preservation and reclamation of surface and subsurface waters. So you can use it for potential testing, funding different clean water initiatives. You can use it for tax reductions, projects to increase safe and affordable housing, and multiple other things as well. Judicial services, so if there's a lot of judicial activity, or even to help pull deeds and other information that's required in many cases for natural gas development, that can help defray those costs. So this is straight from the PUC website. So this is how counties are spending a lot of their Act 13 impact fee dollars. We can see that about 13 million, that green, was used, I believe, for the Capital Reserve Fund. And then you can see other uses as well for the impact fee dollars. And all of these categories match the list that I just showed you on the previous slide. And along those same lines, we have the municipal level expenditures as well. Now, I would like to point out that the amount not reported is not huge, but it is large. So there are about $3 million that have not been accounted for when reporting to the PUC. So municipalities and counties do have the expectation that they will let the PUC know how they've spent these monies. And obviously here, there's $3 million that has not been accounted for. So either the paperwork was not submitted on time, the paperwork is missing or incomplete, so on and so forth. And if we go back to the county level, there's also an amount not reported as well, I believe. So that's something to keep in mind, that in some of these cases we don't actually know how the money is being spent, and that if you are a municipality, you do have a responsibility to let the PUC know how you intend to spend that money. There was an issue, I believe it's been over a year now, with Eugene DePasquale wanting to provide some type of report or examine how municipalities were behaving and if everything was on the up and up, so to speak. So in addition to the information that's aggregated by the Public Utility Commission, we've also conducted our own interviews through the center with municipal officials to get a better sense of how they're actually spending that money. So again, road and bridge repair is very common, especially with the industry having a high impact on roads. Some municipalities have chosen to purchase heavy-duty trucks, paving machines, and backhoes that they can complete that work. Some have chosen to hire part-time police officials or part-time police service, especially if they haven't had police service in the past. Contributions to volunteer fire departments. A lot of work has been done with culverts and storm drains and stormwater management. Many municipalities have used the impact fee to defray the solicitor's costs and additional fees, as well as the hearing, zoning, and hearing board expenses. So one thing that I would like to touch on is that you can use impact fee dollars for a lot of municipal planning initiatives. So whether that be you're hearing the zoning board and their expenses, or the cost of a consultant to update your comprehensive plan. If you'd like to defray the costs of updating your multi-municipal comprehensive plan or attempting to complete a multi-municipal comprehensive plan, that's also an acceptable use of the funds. And then we also see the purchase, like I said, of playground equipment and other additional infrastructure and pieces of equipment for public parks. Included in this program, I also wanted to talk about what Lycoming County does as a potential model. So they use some of that legacy fund money that's collected through Act 13 to establish their own grant program. And the grant program is used just for parks and recreation projects. And so they encourage their municipalities and other organizations to apply to that grant and receive funds from Act 13 to complete various projects. So on this list, you can see the dollar amounts, and you can see things like installing electricity and park facilities, more playground updates, wading pools, upgrading a pavilion, helping out a historical society in a heritage park, and then also facilitating a Little League and reinvesting in the Little League program in one of their areas. So this is something that could definitely be done or replicated in other counties as well, where you establish some type of fund or grant program that you can administer yourself, and you can hold on to part of that funding in a capital reserve and then spend that out through the grant program that you've established. And that's a good way to get a lot of people involved and have a lot of say in how those impact fee dollars are used in the future. So some general tips and recommendations when it comes to the impact fee. Definitely report the funds that you have and how you intend to use them so that everything is filed correctly with the PUC. Make sure that the expenses align with those expenses that are allowed in the actual statute. So again, those were very broad and just about everything is accepted. But if you do have questions, you can certainly reach out to the PUC. You can reach out to us either through the LGA or through the Shale Gas Knowledge Hub, and we can help you as well. Again, the record keeping is very important. You want to make sure that you keep accurate records in case there is some type of audit of your funds. And I think this is very, very important to keep in mind, is that the impact fee amounts vary. So you should not ever think of this as a solid, consistent, or even reliable funding stream. Like we talked about earlier, the age of the wells is very important, and that formula is very complex. So it's hard for me, let alone municipal officials who are very busy with many other things, to try to parse out that funding formula and read the tea leaves, so to speak, about what's going to be received from the impact fee. So it's tough, and it makes it very difficult for planning purposes. So in many ways, even today, after we've had this around for a number of years, it is somewhat of a windfall. And so windfall being a surprise payment that you're not quite expecting. So you shouldn't ever think of it as a regular part of your revenue stream. And then also I'll talk about stripper wells as one of those other variables that has come up recently too, with the amount received from Act 13 impact fee dollars. And generally, just overall, I would urge people to use the funds for projects that will offer the greatest long-term impact. So if that includes some type of planning effort or update to your comprehensive plan or multi-municipal comprehensive plan, this money could be used to offset additional development not related to shale gas and to facilitate other economic opportunities as well. To the stripper well issue, so in addition to the variability given with the actual funding formula, there are also some legal issues that have come up too that have changed what we've expected or changed the revenue stream overall. So one of the more recent legal issues pertaining to Act 13 was the issue of stripper wells. So these are wells that are incapable of producing more than 90,000 cubic feet of gas per day during any calendar month. So that's the language from the statute itself. And if one of those wells that a company has is producing less than 90,000 cubic feet, then they are exempt from the impact fee. So you are not able to collect the revenue from that particular well. Now, having said that, the PUC argues that only wells that fall below that threshold for every single month of the year were the wells that were meant to be exempt. So it went all the way through the court system, and the court actually sided with the industry and said, no, the statute says that it's any calendar month, not every calendar month. And so you can see at the bottom, this is just a screenshot from the Post-Gazette, I believe, about the stripper well ruling. This was before the ruling came down, but I believe that the Pittsburgh Business Journal reported just in the last week or so that $16 million turned out to be less, is closer to $6 million. But still, $6 million was taken out of the mix overall for Act 13 impact fee dollars. So if there are other similar legal challenges, that could also impact the amount collected in the future, and then thus impact how much is available for municipalities. Along these same lines, we do have an election coming up, and there has been talk for quite some time about the establishment of a severance tax. So depending on the outcome of that election, all of this could be completely different because of the establishment of a severance tax. So that's something to also keep in mind when you're trying to plan or figure out what to do with some of this funding. So thank you very much. You can visit us at shalehub.org, which is our information repository. You can also join our newsletter through the website as well to get weekly updates about shale gas development if you are not already a subscriber. And I mentioned before, we have another program coming up in September, I believe, on the ethane cracker plant, talking about economic development and economic impacts of the cracker plant that we'll be doing in conjunction with the LGA. So stay tuned for details about that program as well. And that is all that I have.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. I'm off to the side here, everyone, so I think you can hear my voice. I didn't receive any questions during the presentation. I just wondered, so we ended a little early, which is fine, but I just wondered if maybe you had, and if you don't, that's fine, but anything you want to talk about that you've been hearing in conversations around pipeline development or the progress of the current pipelines, or anything related that you might want to throw out there, and also that, your center and us are planning a couple webinars in the future around pipeline rights of way, and then how to write an oil and gas ordinance, right? So
yes,
those are two subjects that our audiences might be interested in, but I don't know if you have anything you might want to just end with in lieu of questions.
Sure. So I think when it comes to pipelines, the big takeaway is just to stay tuned, do as much reading as possible, and stay abreast of the situation. In the past, 6 months or so, we've seen with the Mariner East 2 pipeline a number of violations, really tremendous issues that popped up with that pipeline. The DEP sent a very lengthy document enumerating all the violations, actually shut down the project for a time. I believe that the project is currently back up and underway. But it's definitely something that requires a lot of attention. So I know that we talk a lot about pipelines, not only, as Greg said, in some of our webinars and programs and upcoming webinars and programs, but also on the Shale Gas Knowledge Hub website, shalehub.org. We try to present news or updates about pipelines as they're available. So any kind of details that come through or things that we see on the DEP end, we try to boil that down for public officials and give the takeaway, if you will, of what's important from updates from the DEP. So, like I said, the violations, it was a very lengthy document, and it went through county by county and area by area where violations had occurred, what had occurred, and what was happening. And so with that project in particular, a lot of it had to do with the use of horizontal directional drilling in areas where they were not permitted to do horizontal directional drilling. So basically going beneath the Earth's surface with the pipeline in areas that they were not permitted to do so, and using special equipment to get that done in areas where they were not permitted to do so.
Okay, well that's great. The Shale Hub is a great resource. I've been on it. If you haven't been on it, I recommend you check it out regularly. I don't know if do you guys send out newsletters or anything?
Yeah, weekly newsletters. So we do 3 to 4 stories every single week. So you can have the updates that we provide on our website sent to your inbox every Thursday. That's our newsletter day. So you'll be able to get the latest updates that way as well.
It's always very current and very relevant from my point of view.
Thank you.
So I would just ask the audience. There still are no questions, which is fine. If you think of any questions, contact myself or Corey or Amanda at the hub there. If you think of any topics that you might want us to discuss in the future, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's a great thing. If it's on your mind, it's very possibly on everyone's mind.
Yep.
So we can pull that together pretty quickly. We'd be happy to offer that. I guess with that said, thank you, Corey, very much. And
thank you again, everyone, for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. And like Greg said, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us. And also, if you have recommendations for projects or programs as well, we really take it seriously. We are here to provide you with technical assistance when it comes to all things shale gas related. So anything that you could ever want or need, we'll try our best to provide information about that. So please, please, please reach out.